All set. So very good evening to all of you. Very good evening to all my students online and offline. How are you guys doing? All good? Fine? Wonderful. So welcome to the current affairs lectures and classes. Guys, before we start, let me tell you on the very onset about why we are meeting at this time. It's going to be a small session. As you can see that you have a handout which says experience session. So I'm going to just behave as if I'm also preparing for UPSC. And the moment the word current affairs comes in front of me, what should be my reaction? That is what we are going to experience. So I'll demonstrate a few things to you so that you understand that whenever newspaper comes in front of you, a magazine or any content related to current affairs comes, what should be one of the best reactions that one can give when one is preparing for an exam like UPSC. Now, there is one myth which I would like to tell you that, which is almost like rumored everywhere, that there is a certain way of preparing current affairs. Now, guys, you tell me this thing that if there was a best way or an ideal way of preparing current affairs, would we be meeting in this session to discuss how to go about it? We would have already known it, and everybody would have been preparing using the same method. So there is no best way. That's number one. There can be multiple ways. We have to find out which way suits us. So what we are going to do here is we are going to outline a few things that the moment you start to prepare for UPSC, what should be the steps 1, 2, 3, 4 that we should be taking, especially keeping current affairs in mind, so that we can utilize the news or whatever current affairs we are using for our prelims, mains, and interview. And at the same time, one of the things that we should keep in mind is we should not spend or overspend time in a particular section in the preparation of UPSC, because suppose you have taken overdose of current affairs. Now what happens because of that is your static area will be compromised, because then you won't be paying too much attention to it. And if you lose that balance between static and current, it's like saying that I have a nice cake which is full of icing. Now icing is the current affairs. But when does icing look good? When the base of the cake is solid, which means that everything in proportion looks good. One has to be very careful about it. So on that note, I would like to start this small session with you. 2, 3 things, guys. I will come to the demonstration part little later. But first, I want to tell you that whenever you start your current affairs preparation, what are the 2 or 3 things that you must do without fail and without compromise? So one of the things that you should be doing is, first of all, you need to have the syllabus in hand like this. So for example, if I have GS1 syllabus with me, I have marked it yellow, and I have given this in your handout, the experience handout, which has been given to you. It's there. So you should carry this all the time. So what is this? It says these are the areas which UPSC has mentioned in the syllabus, and these things, these highlighted areas are those areas from where they ask questions related to current affairs. So it's a nice blend of current and static. So these are all the things which is mostly very heavy towards static, and these are the areas where they mix a lot of current affairs and then ask questions. Example, look at this please, GS paper 1. So if you include this year's question paper as well, almost the same trend with a difference of 5% maybe. So what is there? See, from Indian history 4 question, art and culture on an average 2 in GS paper 1, post independence 1, history 1, geography 7, society 5. Now what is so interesting is that if they are asking 5 questions from society in GS paper 1, there would be 3 questions out of this which would be almost touching a lot of current affairs. So wherever I have given this highlighted area, it means that this is current affairs. Out of 7, 2 current affairs. This bifurcation should be there with you so that you should know the path that you are going to take. See, if you know your point A and point B, and if you know that there are 3 ways of reaching it, your journey becomes easy, because now you know, and you know that which path will suit you. So similarly, if you look at this bifurcation, you would exactly know when you open a newspaper or a magazine that, oh, whenever it's related to geography, for example, tsunami, earthquake, types of rain, etc., soil type, agriculture, whenever you read these kind of news items related to society as well, you would know that whatever is the current affairs, I'm going to use that. So very good evening. So this is one of the things that you should keep in mind. So similarly, what I have done is, without wasting your time, I'll just quickly show you this. There is GS paper 2 as well, where I have mentioned the entire syllabus of UPSC, word by word what UPSC says. And along with that, you have this table, which clearly shows that out of, let's say, 20 questions, how many questions do you get in polity, governance, social justice, IR. And what are these highlighted parts? These are the current affairs parts. So similarly, we have done the same thing for your GS paper 3, GS paper 3, and mostly in GS paper 2, the trend, in GS paper 4, the trend is that they will ask you those things which are mostly conceptual in nature and not current affairs. But something happened this year. They asked a question related to artificial intelligence in GS paper 4. They asked a question that, what is India's interest? What is India's philosophy in artificial intelligence? Based on that, they have asked a question. Why did they ask a question? Because if you are reading newspaper, you would have read in the current affairs that India is advocating a humane use of artificial intelligence. So India has become one of the partners of the global alliance on the use of artificial intelligence. And that part was taken from current affairs and used it in GS paper 4 to frame a question this time. So guys, many times what happens is when you are reading an issue or reading something, some article, etc., nice editorial came related to that. So if you are reading those things, directly it might not be asked in GS paper 1, 2, 3. A reference might be taken in GS paper 4, where the basis will be what you have read in the current affairs. That gives you a clue about how to go about the answer. So that is also one of the interesting parts. So that's your GS paper 3. You can see a lot of yellows there, which means a lot of portions are highlighted. That's your current affairs part. Always carry this, guys. Always carry this as a rule. That's number 1. Number 2, look at this, please. When you prepare for UPSC, there are 2 areas that you need to keep in mind. One is prelims, one is mains. Now look at the intersection. These are those areas, for example, agriculture, polity. These are those areas which are common between the prelims and the mains, social issues. So there are many such things, which are very common between prelims and mains. So if you look at the entire syllabus, it's not this much. If you look at the intersection area, and then it starts to look very doable for us. But what is interesting about this is, this might be only prelims, this might be only mains, this might be common, but everywhere there will be current affairs, current affairs, current affairs, current affairs. That's the beauty of this exam. So this exam tells you that up to 50-60% static area good enough, but remaining part 40%, roughly around 40%, you need to be very well aware of current affairs, which means current affairs has a role only mains, only prelims, and those areas as well. For example, agriculture, where both prelims and mains are important. Like this year, we had a question in mains related to irrigation. On many occasions, we get a question in prelims, which is also related to agriculture from static areas. So current affairs is going to play a big role in your prelims, mains, as well as those common areas. Now, the reason that I thought of meeting you guys is this example. So now guys, see, this is one article from, what's the date? 13th of September. I took this article because, as I told you, that this is an experience session, which means that you are going to experience exactly how you should be preparing your current affairs if you are preparing it on your own. So how do you go about it? Or even if you are in the classroom, for example, let's say you are in a course with us, this is exactly what we do for you. So either you can do it on your own, or you are in the classroom, we'll do it together. There's no difference. So see how to prepare these current affairs news items. So I'll take one example from GS paper 3 and one from GS 2, and then show you how to go about it. See guys, so this is the news article which came. Let's read the headline. It says, inflation has moderated, but we still have distance to cover. Right, Dr. Shaktikant Das. Now, the moment you see this news item, the first reaction should be that, okay, this talks about inflation, which paper? GS paper 3. Under GS paper 3, which paper? Economics. Okay, cool. Now I know that this is the part of my syllabus. Number 2, what should be my second reaction? My second reaction should be, have I read anything in terms of static area theory from this part? If you have read anything, without wasting time, ask yourself, how much of that theory do I remember? This is exactly what I'll do if I'm preparing for this exam. So let me tell you a vague answer. So for example, let's say that since I'm preparing for the first time, second time, etc., I'm not very good in economics or memorizing things. So how would I try to recall? I try to recall like this. Okay, inflation means rise in price. There are various types of inflation, CPI, WPI. Then I would recall that, okay, if inflation is very high, monetary policy committee will increase some rate, like repo rate. If inflation is normal, repo rate will be low. And then I would try to recall that, oh, there are how many types of inflation, demand, supply. India normally faces very high price of food. These are the things I would try to recall. If I'm able to recall, awesome. If I'm not able to recall, without wasting time, open your class notes from wherever you have done your GS. If you have not done your GS, Immediately open a reference book. Immediately open some material which gives you static area related to inflation. Open it without wasting time. So for example, you are having these kind of standard notes or books in your hand. Whatever, you flip through the pages and see what are the broader things under inflation that is mentioned in a standard reference material. What will you find? Let me show you that. This is one of the best ways to prepare this. I'll show you the magic of this. So for example, if you read any standard book on or any material related to current economics or polity, any subject, any standard book related to, let's say, inflation, what will you find there? Inflation, types of inflation. You will find monetary policy committee, the word monetary policy committee. You will also find that, okay, what are the trends of inflation? What is the source of inflation? And if inflation has happened, what is the solution? These things you are going to find. And you are also going to find that, okay, what is the use of this concept? Where do we use this? Why India needs to calculate inflation? So for example, if prices are very high, I am working as an IAS officer with the government of India. I know prices are high. I will put pressure on the government of India that government increase my salary. And the moment I tell the government increase my salary, they will say, beta, why should I increase your salary? Then I will say that because inflation is high. And that increase in salary because of inflation is called dearness allowance. So that's the use. Similarly, recently you would have read in the newspaper that government of India, and especially the government of Delhi, has increased the minimum wages of the workers. Why the minimum wages were increased? Because they are saying inflation is there, we are giving good standard of living. So when prices are high, you increase the salary also of the workers, minimum wages under Manrega, etc. So that's why you should create these kind of things. And there are some facts related to inflation, like why does inflation happen in India normally? Because of food, etc. So this is how you should do it. You should revise it from your standard sources. The moment you create this kind of, this kind of bubble diagrams, etc., in front of your this article that you are reading, suppose you are having your notebook in the hand, and in the notebook you wrote today's date. You just created something like this, nothing else, just this from the syllabus. Now imagine how many times you would need to do this in 1 year. Once, twice, thrice, done. Because a time will come when the moment you read a news article on inflation, you never need to do this. It will be embedded in your mind and heart like that special phone number. You are never going to forget this. Are you understanding this point? So how many times do you need to dial a number to memorize? 3, 4, 5 times. That's it. And you memorize it forever. Same thing. You draw this kind of picture or draw this kind of diagram like once, twice, thrice, 4 times, memorize it forever. And then when you read a news like this, you don't even need to draw this because you already have that in mind. So one big question which everybody asks me is how to revise things, because we tend to forget a lot. Everybody asks this question. Why? Because the syllabus is humongous and you don't have much time. So how do you revise? This is one revision already done. So the moment you read this article, what did I tell you? What's the first step to do? And if you follow these kind of steps, your number of attempts will reduce. So what would I do if I were in your place and I have not studied economics at all? I don't have a background in economics. What will I do? I'll read this news item. Immediately, I'll open some resource from where I have studied the static area. Every resource is good, guys. Let's not use anything bad against any resource because everybody writes almost the similar stuff. What will I do then? Immediately, I'll open a notebook. I'll read inflation theory immediately, one revision done. Then I'll create a bubble diagram like this to capture the most important parts and then see my next step. In the next step, what I'll do is I'll immediately open PYQs. Because if somebody tells me, please devote 1 full day for PYQ, I'm never going to do that. You know it. If I tell you today, go and spend your 2 days in studying PYQ for prelims and PYQ for mains, will you genuinely put your hand on heart and tell me honestly, and you tell me that, are you going to spend 2 days to study PYQs only? Do you have that much time? You don't have that time. So what is the best way to do it? Do it in bits and pieces. So for example, today you read one article related to inflation. What is the first reaction I told you? Immediately open your static areas. Immediately go through the broader headings that, okay, what are the things that is mentioned? Don't read everything. Just go through the broader areas. Create a bubble diagram. This bubble diagram should fit here. And if you do it 2, 3 times, done. And then what do? Immediately you open your PYQs of, prelims. And then you read them one by one. Because these days when you buy the PYQ book, you get it chapter wise, don't you? You get it chapter wise. So imagine that I have a PYQ book. I'm reading chapter wise. See what I will get. Look at this, please. And then you will understand why I'm saying all this so many times. 2021 question. Let's read. What does it say? It says, which of the following institutions or office bring out the wholesale price index data in India? Wow. So they're asking office, which agency? And then I read this: Reserve Bank of India, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Consumer Affairs, blah blah blah. So inside Ministry of Commerce and Industry, there is a department called as DPIIT. This is the department which releases the figure of WPI. So if I am reading the past year paper PYQs, automatically I know that, oh, this is important, which means source of data is important. Another question. This year, this is 2015 question. So much of gap. Let's read it. It says, which of the following brings out consumer price index? Wow. So they are asking this question multiple times. If I bring entire past year paper, you will find half a dozen questions like this being asked every second year. So now they are asking who brings CPI? Labor Bureau. See, who brings out consumer price index number for industrial worker? Labor Bureau. Industrial worker. Who will take care of industries? The Labor Bureau. So that's why the Labor Bureau. Now this is interesting. They are saying consumer price index for industrial worker, which means there must be different types of CPI. CPI headline, CPI core, CPI industrial worker, CPI agricultural labor, so many types of CPIs. CPI rural, CPI urban. Now it is my duty, the moment I see all this, go back and read my theory part, that have I made notes on the types of CPI? So where have I read types? I'll quickly go through it. That why did they ask industrial worker? There must be a reason. Immediately I'll revise. Okay, all the types of CPI and WPI revised. Done. The moment I do this, then I come to current affairs and see how my life will be easy now. So then I will read this article. While reading, see what I underlined. And then you will understand, oh, this is important and what is not important. See, Reserve Bank of India Governor on Friday, I'm just demonstrating as if I'm a UPSC aspirant, I'm reading the article. After doing all this, see what I'll do. So it says that the governor on Friday said even as consumer price index has softened to 2 to 6%. Oh, softened. Consumer price index has softened, which means that consumer price index has reduced. CPI, inflation has come down. Immediately I'll write it here. CPI declined. My notes have started. CPI declined, done. Why? Remember this year, what did UPSC ask us? UPSC asked us a question, why were food prices high in India? They asked reasons for that. For that, we need to know whether the food prices are high or low. So what are we doing here? We wrote CPI declined. CPI declined. That's the first point. Now let's read it again and let's see what else is there. The governor's statement comes a day after National Statistical Office data showed CPI inflation. Nice. So who is showing the data related to CPI? NSO. NSO is showing the data related to CPI. If I'm preparing for UPSC, the first reaction that I should show, if I genuinely want to crack this exam in less number of times without wasting time, I'll open my phone and immediately I'll put in the Google NSO. And the moment I put NSO, immediately I'll see that NSO is equal to NSSO plus CSO. When did the government of India do this? This was a separate body. This was a separate body. Government of India merged them in the year 2019, called as NSO. So now I know, wow, NSO is giving me one measure of inflation. But then why did UPSC say that CPI Industrial Worker Labor Bureau? That means different type of inflation is given by different organizations and institutions, which means without wasting time, I will make a table. And in this table, that's how you prepare current affairs. I will write CPI headline, then CPI industrial worker, agricultural labor, CPI rural, CPI urban, then I'll write WPI, and in front of everything, I will write the name of the agency who releases the data. So, amazing type of preparation already done, because I know that UPSC will definitely ask me this question either today or tomorrow. And God knows, maybe I'm appearing in one of the attempts and that attempt only is asked the question. This is how you prepare it. So guys, use your mobile phone, your Google, so that if you are not able to find it, just Google NSO, you'll find all this. So see what I have done, underline. And what did I do? Immediately I made a pointer. NSO releases CPI headline. Notes done. See how crispy the notes are. So absolute crisp, right? Nothing extra, nothing which is a burden for me, right? So that's one. Up see, how do I read it again? Now again come back and quickly go through it. Okay, it shows CPI inflation, retail inflation is increasing, not interested. It says it is increasing by 3.5, 4.5. But this will happen whole year. So every day I don't need to note this down. I just need to note this down during the economic survey and budget next year. Because in the budget next year, economic survey next year, 1 year of data will be given to me. I don't need to do this every day. I'll skip this part. Always remember that whenever you are reading a data, you just need to note down the trend that, okay, it is going up or down just for your sake of understanding. And data, you don't need to note down from here. Why? Because at the end of the year, 1st of Feb, we are anyway again going to do it. So I'll skip this and then I'll read this. Okay, inflation has moderated, understood, I know. It says into the tolerance band of plus minus 2% around target 4%. Wow, there is a tolerance band, which means India can tolerate only up to 4 plus minus 2. Immediately, tolerance limit or tolerance band. That's my notes. And what do I write here in the bracket? So what have I written? Flexible inflation targeting. Why flexible? Because there is a tolerance band. 4 plus minus 2 is flexible. So now see, so this part is done. Now we come to this part, totally useless. Some names are given, fancy things are given, this forum, that forum. Absolutely, you read this, you'll find it useless. Then I come here, under the flexible targeting regime. Oh, new word, flexible targeting. Immediately I copy this, flexible targeting, because it's new. I haven't seen this before. I'm a new aspirant, I'm just studying it for the first time. So what will I do? Forward, I'll just note it down. Okay, flexible. So here comes your flexible. And then I read this part. So the Reserve Bank of India, projections indicate inflation is likely to come down. Very happy, good for me. Acha, Pacho, do you know one thing? When inflation will come down, salary increment won't happen. Well, why would somebody increase my salary? So if my, let's say, friends or my brother or sister, they are working in a company and they would be very happy that, yes, this year my salary will increase. I don't know, it might not increase. Why? Because inflation will not happen. So why will your salary increase? So this could be one of the things, right? Whenever inflation happens, the boss of the company, they are tempted to increase the salary a little bit to keep the employees happy. But there is a problem now. Next one. Amid a highly uncertain international environment, the Indian economy rebounded. Oh, international situation was not good, but we have rebounded. Maybe internationally inflation is high, but currently they are saying that in India it is okay. But now we see from COVID impact, blah, blah, blah. See, it says rebounded from the severe COVID impact and averaged real rate of growth 8%. Now it says, governor said for 2024-25, RBI has projected real GDP at 72%. Real GDP. What is real GDP? Suppose that a country produces this pen, the price of this pen is 10 rupees. Real price is 10 rupees. Now, the country produces only one pen. So what is the real GDP of the country? 10 rupees. Now imagine, guys, that the country produces one pen again next year, only one pen. Number of pens has not increased, but the price of the pen has increased to 12 rupees. So what will be the real GDP? Real GDP will still be 10. Nominal GDP will be 12 because only price has increased, but quantity of the pen has not increased. So what is RBI saying? RBI is saying, look here, the governor said for 2024-25, the RBI has projected real GDP growth at 7.2%. Real GDP, which means if you remove inflation, this is the growth. If you include inflation, growth will look very big. Wow, that means this article has just told me that there is a connection between growth and inflation. Immediately, I'll note this down, that inflation impacts growth. Now I'll Google, how does inflation impact growth? The moment I Google, the first link or article that will come, that will be called as Phillips curve. Are you understanding this? What have we done? So we read one article from the newspaper. I told you something. So I told you this is an experience session, which means I told you that I'm going to behave just like a UPSC aspirant, and I'm going to show you what would be my reaction when I read these things. So what is my first reaction? My first reaction when I see this news article is that, okay, GS paper 3 inflation. And immediately what do? I go to my static areas notebooks and I flip through the pages. I flip through the pages and I see what theory I have studied. Then I create this bubble diagram. Immediately I put the main points, because I told you that we have to do this just twice or thrice. In our entire UPSC preparation cycle, this has to be done only twice or thrice. Then you'll memorize. And then what do? I study the PYQs. What do PYQs tell me? PYQs tell me what are the type of questions that UPSC has been asking. So PYQs are absolutely compulsory, absolutely compulsory. It gives an idea. And the moment I see PYQ, I understood a lot of factual questions are being asked, a lot of conceptual questions are being asked. Then I go back and I come here and I see amazing article. And from this article, what do? I don't write, I don't copy everything from here. That's useless. So what do? I make notes like this. If you read the notes, you look at the entire summary of the article. See, it says CPI declined, understood. This is question which is asked in UPSC. Who releases the data? What is tolerance band? And what is this relationship? Everything done. That is one example. Another example. What's the date? 29th of September, almost 2 days back. So what is the article? It says, Goel may ease public procurement rules for innovative product manufacturers. Okay, looks complicated. Because this article is saying that may is public procurement. Public means government. Procurement with government is purchasing something. Okay, why would government purchase something? Because government constructs roads, capex. Government requires iron, steel, cement, all those things, capex. So it says, if government of India requires a few things, then government of India is thinking about making some changes there. If changes are not required, why this article? So that means there must be a rule of procurement and the government must be proposing some change there. So my mind will run like this. And then I will start to think, but from where would the government procure? We are a country which is a mixed economy. We don't promote only capitalism. We also believe in socialist principles. Absolutely. Which means that if I'm thinking about it, that if I'm the government, from where would I procure? I'll think about women. I'll think about disadvantaged sections like SCs, STs. I'll think about MSMEs. I'll think about small industries. And that is from where I will procure. Are you understanding this point? That since we are a mixed economy, we have to think like this. And then I will start to look at this article and see what is it saying. May ease procurement rules for innovative product manufacture, which means so far government has been giving benefit to small industries, to women-led industries, to SCSTs, to tribal industries. But now government of India is also thinking of giving benefit to somebody else. Those who are trying to provide innovative and technology-oriented products to the government. Government says, I will also give value to you. I will make rules little easy for you, which means if government of India is planning to buy, let's say, unique type of digital board, laptops or tablets, or this kind of stylus pens, these are all technology products. So government of India would also think that, hey, this is something unique. So let me give benefit to some of my local producers. So far, government was not doing this. Government was saying, I will give you other help, but while I buy these things, I'm not going to give any extra help to you. So now government of India is saying that if I have to buy technology kind of products, I know that Indian technology is substandard. I am the government, I know it, but I will give preference to you, despite the fact that you are substandard. But since I'm going to give preference to you, first I have to make you strong. How do I make you strong? Research and development expenditure. I'm going to give you financial assistance, training, etc., incubation, and then I will launch a scheme so that when you create awesome products, I'll procure it from you at easy terms and conditions. Wait, easy terms and conditions, which means there must be some terms and conditions. Now I read this. See, what do I read? Fatafat, without wasting time, we'll read it like this. In order to boost the manufacturing ecosystem, the government is exploring ways to ease public procurement criteria. Wow. So there must be a public procurement criteria. I'm not aware of it. What will I do? Google. I'll Google public procurement criteria because these are new things. So the moment I Google, I find this. And it's there in the article also. So what is there? So it says Government Procurement Rule DPIIT. Why did I write DPIIT there? Because UPSC has a very bad habit. The moment they will ask you a question, they will immediately put the name of the organization and say, which organization releases this rules and regulations? They have this bad habit. They will ask you this question. Why? Because when you become a bureaucrat, they are going to post you in these departments. Though they expect you to know these basic things. So whenever you write this, government procurement, which organization, which body, which ministry? So DPIIT is the department and ministry is the Ministry of Commerce and Industries. And then I read this, that okay, for government projects which is less than 200 crore, 200 crore for government of India is nothing. Right? So government of India says, if government is buying, listen to it carefully, bacho. If government of India is buying steel, why? Because they have to construct a bridge. So if government of India is buying steel, Or let's say that government of India is buying any kind of machine which is to be used in government companies anywhere. So government says, if the value of the item is less than 200 crore total value, then government says, I'm going to give preference to local producers, Indian producers. How does the government of India define local producer? So government of India says there are three types of local producers. So what is the local producer? The local producer is this class 1 local producer, and then class 2 local producer, and third is non-local supplier. This is all given in that article. I'll show you. See, DPIT defines class 1, class 2, class 3. From here, what do? We don't copy this note. We simply rearrange it. And what is a class 1 local supplier? A class 1 local supplier is a supplier who is manufacturing goods using more than 50% domestic components. So if I'm producing this digital pen, let's say there are 100 components I'm using. Out of these 100 components, let's say 51% of the component is Indian. We have manufactured it in India. And who manufactured this? MSMEs. And then if I go to government and tell government, am I a class 1 local supplier? Government will say, of course, yes, you are. Because the majority of the items you used here is within India itself. So government will say, beta, I'm giving you the contract. You provide this pen to rest of India, to the government departments. That's a good thing. And second, government of India says class 2 suppliers. Who are class 2 suppliers? See, anybody whose content is between 20 to 50%. So government says, if you are manufacturing the pen and you are giving a domestic content, local content, which is 20%, 21%, 22%, not 50, but 20 to 50, government says you are also good. But if you are giving less than 20%, that means majority of the inputs that you are using here, you are importing. That means you are assembling in India, which Dr. Rajan criticized. He said, why is it happening that under Make in India, everybody is just assembling in India? So government of India is saying, okay, I will promote Make in India. How? By doing this rule. So whenever government brings out tenders that who wants to supply this pen to the government, government says only two people are eligible to supply. Number one is class 1 supplier, and number 2, class 2 local supplier. Class 3, non-local supplier, not eligible because the domestic content is less than 20%. That's the new rule. So what is mentioned in this article? In this article, it is mentioned that this is the rule which the government of India is currently following. But in one case, government does not follow this rule. What is that case? Whenever government procures heavy technology related items, government of India realizes that Indian companies do not have the technology. So what happens is government keeps on telling, hey, is there any Indian company, class 1, class 2 supplier? Indian companies keep on sitting like, no, don't look at us. We are not there for you. So government of India is saying we need to change this. So government says, I will support the local Indian companies so that they can also produce technology related items in India. And in future, they are not going to start it now. They are saying in next 1 or 2 years, when our startups are strong, then we will call startups also as class 1 and class 2. And whenever government of India has to buy anything related to technology, let's say LED televisions, government of India has to put in all government departments, CCTV cameras. Government says, I will bring it, I'll buy it, procure it from Indian suppliers also. That's the news. So guys, what is the news? The news says government is thinking about it. Now, thinking doesn't mean that it has already happened. It will take 2 years. But what will UPSC do with you? UPSC will play another game with you. What they will do is, they will take this paragraph and they will ask you, which of the following category of suppliers are eligible to currently supply to government departments? Class 1, class 2, or non-local suppliers? And then you have to select the answer. Or they can tell you match the following. Class 1, class 2, non. One side, another side, they will mention the percentage of items produced in India. So if I'm manufacturing a pen and more than 50% content is developed in India, I'm class 1. So this is how UPSC can twist these things and ask in the form of question. So how is the UPSC preparation done using current affairs? See, this article only talks about very basic things like class 1, class 2, etc. That's it. Remaining part is just fancy items. So what do? You make notes like this first, and then because the article is not giving all the details, and this you should make as a habit if you are preparing current affairs on your own. What should be the habit? Immediately Google. What will you Google? Government procurement rules. You know which link will open in front of you? DPIIT. And the moment you read that DPIIT page, you don't have to do it every day. In your entire UPSC preparation, you have to do it once. Because once you make these notes, only thing that will happen is some percentage will change. One company will be added, one will be subtracted. This whole structure is not going to change. It's a big country. Big changes don't happen like this. Incremental changes happen. So what will you do? You will Google and you will find something more interesting. What is the interesting thing you are going to find? Government procurement takes place through an online portal called as GEM, Government E-Marketplace. It is called as, have I written it somewhere? Hai na? This is there. GEM, Government E-Marketplace. So for example, guys, suppose that this is the Government E-Marketplace. This is a portal called as GEM. Now suppose that Government of India requires 100 solar lights. Solar lights required by the Government of India. So what is the rule in India currently? Out of this 100, 25% of the solar lights the government is going to buy from MSMEs. That's the rule. Minimum 25% procurement has to happen from MSMEs. Within MSMEs, Government of India has to make sure that 4% solar light comes from those MSMEs which are owned by SCs, STs, 3% by women. This is compulsory. This is not given in that article. Now you will have to add on this from your Google, etc., or some reports. Because the moment one news item related to procurement has been given in the newspaper, everything related to procurement must be known to you. This is how you have to prepare the current affairs. So, very good evening. So guys, if you have this idea in your mind, I read the article, I made 2-3 lines notes, or I have copied the entire, paragraph after paragraph, I make a bulky note. It doesn't help because you'll be busy making bulky notes. And what will UPSC do? UPSC will ask you this 25% wala question, which is not even mentioned. They will ask you this 3% and 4% question, that what is the compulsory percentage of procurement from women-led MSMEs by the Government of India? 3%. This type of question they are going to, which means the moment you start a concept, you have to complete the 360 degree and you have to write all the points here. So see, we have not copied the entire article. We have just written the main things, everything summarized, done and dusted. Current affairs prepared. So this is how you handle the article. Another example, but this I'm not going to teach now. I'll just tell you how to go about it because there are so many articles. And I told you that today I'll give you an experience. So experience number 3. Read this. This is GS paper 2. What does it say? It says smart digital regulation soon, and says Vaishnav, smart digital regulation. Wow. I have heard this term. Where did I hear this term? 2024 mains. E-governance is not just about the routine application of digital technology in service delivery process. It is as much about multifarious interactions for ensuring transparency and accountability. In this context, evaluate the role of interactive service model of e-governance. So for example, I am MSME and I am supposed to take loan under Mudra Yojana. But when I went to take loan under Mudra Yojana, nobody is giving me loan. They are discriminating against me. Immediately, I'll go to a portal called as Champions Portal. And I will complain to the Ministry of MSME, I'm not getting my loan. So what will I'm a farmer, I should get fertilizer subsidy, I'm not getting it. I'll complain to the government. That's called interactive service model. So what is the umbrella scheme that we are following in India for interactive service model? That's called Digital India. Digital India. Under Digital India, what are the things which are happening, which you should note from this article, which will help you in GS paper 2? See, these bubble diagrams are, I'm telling you, they're the best. The first thing is horizontal laws. What are horizontal laws? Then you have something called vertical laws. Have you heard of horizontal devolution, vertical devolution? So in your polity and governance as well, there are 2 types of laws, horizontal laws and vertical laws. For example, data protection. Every sector of the society and economy has to abide by this rule called data protection. That's vertical. Because center is telling, boss, everybody has to follow. But then every sector is different in nature. So the way the rule will be molded for sectors is different. That's horizontal. So vertical laws, horizontal laws. Horizontal laws might have a bigger role for state governments and special ministries and departments. So when you prepare this, who knows your next question in UPSC will be in 2 minutes. Who knows in the next question in UPSC might be that, okay, discuss the horizontal and vertical laws related to e-governance in India. Very deadly question, because this is the only question which is left to be asked. So these are 2 things for GS paper 2, and then you see Digital India Act 2023. And then you have this was proposed by the government, Digital Personal Data Protection Act, again 2023. Since that was in the news, hence this question in UPSC. Now, there is one problem which Prime Minister has mentioned at many places. What is that problem? Somebody made a deep fake of PM also, right? So So he got very angry and upset, and all of a sudden he started to say that this needs to be tackled. Everywhere he's saying this. So which means now, I'm telling you, that's the reason that these two laws have been proposed by the government. Now government is saying with these two laws, we are going to control this, because the government did not like this part. They said the use of AI, cyber security, and deepfake is very deadly. So they said we are going to use these two to counter this. In that context, that article has been written. So if I'm preparing for UPSC, what will I do? I will immediately write a short note on this. I'll write a short note on this. I'll write a short note on these three, because these two are going to handle these three. I'll write a short note on Digital India, already asked last year. And then I'm going to write a short note on these two. And I'm going to check how e-governance is related to each of these. Preparation complete. That's it. This is how you prepare your GS paper 2. So guys, if you want to prepare current affairs, I have told you some steps. A quick summary. This is my fund of preparing current affairs. This is how you can also predict some questions in the exam. So the first is PYQ for prelims 2014. Second is PYQ for mains 2014, which means that you have 2014 onwards, which means that you have to look at the MCQs which have been asked in UPSC 2014 onwards. Then you have to check the questions which have been asked from 2014 for mains. This also you have to check. And third is create a mind map of all the themes asked in prelims and mains. What is mind map? The moment you read this part, for example, I gave you inflation or a mind map. Now, similarly, government procurement. The moment you write government procurement, immediately in 5 seconds, see what you do. E-government marketplace. Number 2 is 25% rule. Number 3 is class 1, class 2. And then some sections which the government is trying to help. Done. Mind map created. So every time I read an article, I'll just increase the mind map. So that's your next part. And next is try to connect the current affairs to that mind map. So whatever current affairs you read, you add it there in the mind map. You need to create mind map only once or twice. That's it in your entire UPSC journey. And then, if possible, prepare extremely short notes, which means one-liners. One-liner, two-liner, one-liner, two-liner, nothing more than that. That's it. So guys, this was your experience session, where you experience some articles and how to handle them. And I strongly suggest that you keep this kit with you, because all the syllabus, entire syllabus of UPSC is there. Some examples are there, the bubble diagrams are there, and you follow the instructions that I've given you. And in future, very soon, I'll be there with you with some more tips and tricks for the current affairs handling. So anything that you would like to know from me? One of your friends is saying we're waiting for you in the class, right? So see you in the class soon in 1 minute. But good to see you here as well. So, okay, Ashima, point noted. Thank you so much, guys. So it was really happy seeing you here, and you attended consistently. I'm so happy. Please follow all these advices. And if you feel that you need more help, you let us know. I'll definitely create another session for you. Thank you so much, guys.